Here we are. Let's see, how am I going to do this? I want to be able to see the chat. Is this coming through all right? Can you hear me? So, where'd it go now? So the DLC was just announced on Twitter, Instagram, all the social media sites. I'm not going to be on for very long. I just wanted to join in the fun as everybody's going to start talking about this nonstop. So I figured let's get in and try to figure out exactly what is going on here. So this is the image that was dropped. So first of all, the title, Shadow of the Erd Tree. Shadow of the Erd Tree immediately makes me think of something related to death. If we look at the actual tree, it appears to be blackened and dead. Very twisted. Now, one of the interesting things which it looks like to me is this idea of the caduceus tree, which I proposed in my Crucible video, the intertwining trunks. So it kind of appears that looks confirmed here, that there's sort of two trees. Actually, if you look at it, it almost looks like this one on the left is kind of grabbing onto the tree that looks more like our normal Erd tree. Like this is pretty much what the Erd tree in game looks like, the top of its branches, and then it looks like we have this this sort of vine that's wrapped around its trunk. And you can actually see that that's a different trunk. So there are two trees here, or a two-part tree. Let's see. I want to just bring this up so I can see the chat if anyone wants to jump in. So we've got two trees. And then we've got this golden, well, at first glance it looks like sap, but I'm not sure. Hold on. Let me grab my mouse so I can deal with this properly. Ba, ba, ba. Is the chat working? Just want to know if if you can all hear me. Otherwise, I'm just speaking to myself. For some reason, I don't see anything, but maybe no one's talking. In any case, let's take a look at this. So, two trees, and then we've got, how do we zoom in more? In fact, let's do this in a different format. We've got so much stuff on my desktop now. So, okay, that looks a little bit better. And we can zoom in much more, so that's better. So, yeah, so at first glance, this looks like, oh, whoops. At first glance, this looks like sap, but something almost looks like a spear is, like it's being impaled with this gold thing. But there does appear to be some sap in there. So it's kind of hard to tell here. It looks like that might be a separate, that might be the trunk that's wrapped around the main trunk, in which case the gold is like part of the main trunk. A little bit difficult to tell. Similar to the Halig tree in many regards. We've got some coffins. These are the same style of coffins that you see in the Ensel and Schiefer rivers, to my knowledge. As for these arches, I'm not entirely sure where those can be seen in game. Oh, there we go. Okay. I pulled up the stream on my phone and now I can see all the comments. For some reason it's not appearing on my screen, so I'll just check them on my phone. So, oh, let's look at some of these. Are we being scammed at 4 a.m.? No, this is genuine. This is genuine. I know it's bedtime. I know. I was trying to go to sleep a while ago, and then this happened. So, could be the Helfen realm. Yeah, definitely is gonna. There's gonna be a lot of Helfen speculation coming out. For anyone who has not seen it, I did a video on the Helfen, so highly recommend watching that. This is genuine. This is genuine. This is the real deal. I will show it to you again. Where did it go? Not that, but where's the other part? There we go. So here's the tweet from software. Shadow of the Erd Tree. So let's go back to this, and let's take a look at the whole thing. Okay, so now obviously this is where we want to take a look. So let's get in real close here because this seems important. So that's obviously Torrent. So this would presumably be Torrent's former master. To my mind, this looks... Well, okay, so, yeah, there's two strong candidates, right? One would be Mikola and one would be Marika. My first thought would be Marika. Does appear to be a fairly feminine physique, but again, with Mikola, that's a bit hard to tell. I think the braids, though, the style of the braids looks very similar to Mikola's. Let's pull up the let's pull up that picture of Mikola for comparison. Okay, fine, Fextra. Thank you. Well, it's close. It's close. It's hard to tell, and let's pull up a picture of Marika. See, the thing is, the Marika that we see, where's the proper one? So she does have the braids. Well, she's got a couple braids. This Well, we see here this like I don't know what you call that little sort of tiara of braids that looks much more like Mikola's. Actually, let's zoom in a little bit more. This is the highest quality picture I could find. So that intertwining like caduceus thing, that looks very similar to the one here. So that looks a lot like Mikola. Yeah, I'd have to say that looks a lot like Mikola. Yeah, I think it could be either one, but I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure exactly which one I think. Yeah, the circlet exactly. Um, Now, so let's just think about this. So the Torrent's former master gave Ronnie the spirit calling bell. Um, and that would presumably also be the same spirit tuner that Hugh owed something to. Now we do know that Hugh had something to he owed something to America in a sense, in that he's built, making a weapon to kill a god for America. So that would track with America. Um, but maybe Mikola, and who knows? Maybe Mikola is America. Uh, this is one of the issues with Elden Ring, is that it's very difficult to say who is who. Face shape seems more childish. It's hard to say. Well, first of all, we could ask when we're looking at, what time period is this? Whoops. What time period is this? Because there has been a pattern of going into the past or something like that in a lot of the FromSoft DLCs. But it's possible this is also after the end of the game. Maybe everyone is America? I mean, honestly, though, unironically, that's not a bad theory, and it's crossed my mind. With regard to the tree, the one that's bent over is the main one, and it's busted. The vertical one looks like it's grafted into the bent over the busted one. That's possible. It's at the level where I can't. It's not quite clear enough for me to tell exactly what's going on there. I mean, this, like you see these, we've got these little arms that are sort of hooked around it. And this is a fairly straight trunk. It's actually at that sort of angle that we see the Erd tree. I think this is the Erd tree. And this is some sort of parasitic. Is it the fig? There's a type of fig tree, I think, which, well, you know what? I could probably look this up. Parasitic fig tree, something like that. It's like a vine. Yeah, so you see these strangler fig. That's what it's called. So there's a strangler fig, is this type of tree which it literally wraps around the trunk. So that's sort of what it's giving me the vibe of. So these arms, you see that. And it's also, you can see that it's twisted around. So the trunk, this trunk comes out from here, and then it winds around the back of this taller trunk. Maybe let me just pull out a little bit. You can see that there's this line here. So that's the trunk of one tree, and it's got this wound with gold inside. And then twisting around that is this strangler fig type thing. And this looks much more like the halig tree, this strangling one. Norman Best Boy says, I'm thinking due to cut content that Saint Trina and Mikla are different. Perhaps they split them into two unique characters. Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Because they may have just decided to do something different from what they originally planned. So I don't know if anyone can identify where these arches are from. Do we see these arches in game? I mean, I just can't recognize exactly. I can't recognize exactly where that would be. There looks to be statues or reliefs of some people up here. Beaches of Limgrave. So is this the same, the ancient sort of ruins that we see scattered around the lands between? Haligtree Brace arches. That's an interesting idea. Yeah, I'm not sure where those would have been. I mean, these coffins here. Now, I'm not entirely sure. So there's coffins in the open world, like in Limgrave, in Caelid, in. Are they in Liurnia at all? I don't remember ever seeing the coffins in Liurnia, actually, now that I think about it. Maybe they're there. There's those, and then there's the ones in Shifra and the Ainsel Rivers. And I'm not entirely sure if those are the same things. These look very simple in design. There's fields of wheat. It looks like, or something like wheat. Let's not say it's wheat, because it certainly looks, oh, whoops, stop it. Certainly looks like wheat. Or something similar. Which makes me think of various stories about, like Celtic and British stories about, this is not clickbait, this is genuine, this is the real deal. It is genuinely the real DLC. So the fields of wheat is making me think of, and I don't, it's a little bit unclear in my mind, but there's various Celtic or British Isles stories about something like an afterlife, some sort of, vibrant land which is golden. There's like, in the Priding Chronicles series, there's the Summerlands, I think it's called, and also in Tolkien there's the land to the west. I can't remember what it's called. It's a little bit too late for my brain to be working. So, not sure exactly if that indicates something. There are only 2 or 3 spots in the game with the golden fields. Elysian Fields, yeah, that's another thing. So, possibly death related. Oops. Oh, stop. So, we see in the background there's a lot of hills. Hard to identify where this would be exactly. Because if that is the Erd Tree, it doesn't seem to be the same sort of geography that we see in the game. So, in the game, the geography of the lands between is it's very extreme, right? There's lots of cliffs and things like that. So, this is either a different place or it's much earlier. Yeah, I don't think it could be much later, actually. I mean, it could be anything, but it doesn't seem to me that that would make much sense, because if we're looking at something much earlier, then perhaps some cataclysmic event changed the geography of the world. Either that, or we're literally in some different plane of existence where something like the Erd Tree still exists, which, if it's the shadow of the Erd Tree, maybe it's like the shadow of it in a different realm. Maybe it's another Erd Tree. That's very possible. Very possible. So the other thing that stood out to me, so we have these like these sort of ghosts of what look like tombstones, as well as this odd object. So let's take a closer look. So we have these tombstones, and so there's something going on with ghosts and spirits. And then this thing, well, I mean, one thing this makes me think of is the Rune of Death. This is not a troll. I will just confirm this again for everybody, that where'd it go? This is the tweet from Software, and they also posted on Instagram and all of the social media. This is an official announcement for the DLC. So yes, sort of Londor vibes, exactly. Sort of a vowel. But this semicircle facing downwards, that definitely resembles the Rune of Death. Let me see if I can pull that up. What's going on here? Let's see. Is that it? Oh, perfect. Right there. So that's what I would be thinking. It's the Rune of Death, and specifically the way that the Rune of Death seems to mirror Marika's symbol. Marika is depicted with a semicircle going up, which I can show you right. Oh, there's got too many things open now. Marika is depicted, not there, but there, for instance. So you could say this is the Rune of Life, or actually that might be a little bit of a reach to call it the Rune of Life, because I think the idea is that the rune arc captures the blessings which fall, and so the idea may be that she's sort of recollecting the spirits of the dead instead of letting them die, by letting them go down the way that the Rune of Death does. So going back to this makes me think of the Rune of Death. Some kind of symbol representing it, although this is clearly a stake with a kind of practical purpose. And it's got some bits of cloth, it looks like, or possibly feathers. I'll say cloth. So some kind of symbolic usage. You swear you've seen that upside down circle cross in the game. I don't recall ever seeing it, but if you can find it, I would be very interested in an example. Speculation on release date? No, but I can tell you my thoughts about it. I don't recall the exact numbers, but in the past, the DLCs have been released in short order after the announcement. So there's never been like a year-long wait in between the DLC announcement and the release. It's a matter of months. Um, Looks like a ghostly halo scythe the Cleanrot Knights use. That's an interesting idea. Let's look up the halo scythe. Where is it? You know, I never even connected that idea, the halo scythe, that it's this. I guess you could say that it's an upside down semicircle. That's an interesting theory. Can you see any kind of interesting designs on there? It's a little bit too low detailed for me to tell if there's anything going on there. Yeah. Can you post links in the chat? I think you should be able to. You could try and see if it appears. Crescent moon. That's another idea. In fact, that could also all be the same idea. So let's go back to this. So I would say that this is some kind of grave marker, which would indicate that this symbol at the time period that we're looking at has some importance, some ritualistic importance, which would probably connect with the Rune of Death. That would be my take on that. Let's just see if there's anything else that we can glean from this. Connected to the eclipse? Well, hard to say. There's a lot of them. Interesting. So some graves are marked with stones, and some of them have this sword with the upside down semicircle. Inosculation is a natural phenomenon in which trunks, branches, or roots of two trees grow together in a manner biologically similar to the artificial process of grafting. Interesting. Inosculation. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. Well, that's definitely something that's going on, if at least on a figurative level. Oops. I wanted to look up a picture of the Haligtree. I don't know if I'll be able to find one from far away. There isn't really a good picture here. But it does have that sort of split trunk, right? That it's got like sort of two bits. You can kind of see two parts to it. Doesn't the right corner building look like a church entrance? The right... Are you talking about... Wait, hold on. Are you talking about this one? Let's take a look. Yeah, well, this is definitely the entrance to a building. Wait, what if this is about what Godric said? To our home bathed in rays of gold, but in this case, a shadow. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Or maybe it's like one of those the light the tree casts in one place is darkness elsewhere type things. Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things about Elden Ring's lore, which has been sort of omnipresent in my mind since pretty much the beginning, is this idea of duality. And in particular, the idea that there's some kind of reflection or two worlds going on, right? You have all these people that are sort of reflections of each other. You have like Godefroy. And, you know, people dismiss Godefroy as a lot of people dismiss Godefroy as like some lazy reuse of a boss asset, which, I mean, you can say that, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not important to the lore. My impression when I first found Godefroy was, oh, okay, that clearly confirms that there's some weird thing going on with two worlds or two planes of reality, two things that are two dimensions, two universes, something like that. Um, and in my mind, that's also connected with the idea of water, because water reflects, and you have this strange thing with the upside down architecture of Nokron, and no, this is just mist, right? That's not actually water. So fog, that would also symbolically connect with like a transitionary state, perhaps between life and death. Shadow of the tree being the reflection of the lands between living and death. Yeah, something like that. Something like that. My first thought is the dripping sap looks like a needle. The tree is being drained of color. Ooh. I like that, the needle idea. Yeah, because it does look like it's being pierced. That's a little bit too close now. It does look like it's being pierced. Well, see, you can... It looks like this tree has a sort of wound along it. Like, the Erd tree that we see in game has this wound in it that we can enter, and on the outside is this sort of illusory golden spirit tree, and then once you enter through the wound, it's more like a normal tree. So it kind of looks like a really big version of that, except reversed. It's like a normal tree on the outside and it's gold on the inside. And that actually is a fairly compelling idea to me, that it's like the world on the inside of the Erd tree, if that makes sense. Yeah, but that doesn't seem accidental that this is being pierced somehow. The spirit world seems to sort of overlap the physical universe based off of the environmental storytelling in the mountaintop of the giants. I don't see any divine towers. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. All of the landmarks, yeah, it's actually a good way to think about it is what we don't see. All of the landmarks that we would expect to see are missing. So not only do we not have the Divine Towers, but we don't have the cliffs. We don't have any of the structures that we would expect to see. Oh, thank you very much, Muppet. I appreciate it. It kind of looks like Deathroot wrapped around the Erd Tree, not to mention the black particles. Uh-huh. Let's take another look. I see what you mean with the black particles. Yeah, it's very dynamic. I don't know if I would go straight to Deathroot exactly. Deathroot has a very particular... Well, what exactly is Deathroot is the question, so... No shadows of buildings visible near the tree. Yeah, so the question is this in the past or the future or some other dimension of reality that is outside of the time that we know? We don't get much evidence of civilization, except that we do have ruins, which means that there was some kind of... Actually, what this tells us is that... Oh, no, don't open Visual Studio. What the hell? If this is something... Regardless of whether this is something that we saw in game, we know that this is far enough in the future from a civilization that existed that not only did the ruins collapse, but also this whole place is like gone back to a natural state. These fields of wheat have grown up after that. It's far in the future from some civilization. Whether it's the one that we see in the game or something else is different. Yeah, so the spirit... Hold on. I think it is the spirit world version of the Lands Between. Yeah, I'm trying to think of some... well, I haven't seen Stranger Things, but I understand there's some sort of like mirror realm in that. And I feel like there's another story I can't think of. Maybe something in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or Doctor Who, with some idea of like a sort of flipped alternate universe that exists on the back of this one, so to speak. And I wonder if there's some idea like that, like maybe life is one side of the coin and death is the other side. Or, here's an alternate theory, actually. All right, here's a crazy theory. What if this is the real world? What if this is the real world and the Lands Between exists in this? Inside this tree? What if the Lands Between is the spirit world, the purgatory, the world of death or whatever? Because, I mean, it is a weird place to be. Maybe the real world looks like this, and everybody's died and they've gone to the Lands Between. Way in the future? Well, it's definitely way in the future from something. And if this is the Lands Between, then yeah, it would be way in the future from that. Far enough that we don't see any. It looks totally unlike the lands between that we know. Like geologically, looks unlike the lands between that we know. Yeah, you see in the opening scene when your character enters the world. Yes, the key, the rogue guy makes a good point. The Helfen tree may potentially be the shadow of the Erd tree, but given the direct Japanese translation, it says Tree of Lights. I don't see lights of red grace, so this might not be the spirit world. Yeah, so the idea of the lamplight, this lamp tree, a tree which has some light which guides people in the spirit world. Isn't the wheat a sign of the Egyptian realm of death? You may be right about that. I think it's a common trope in various afterlife. I don't have. I can't think of specific references right now. You may be right about the Egyptian one, and I think also in the Greek myths, who probably took it from the Egyptians. The light mixing with the clouds looks like eclipse fire / death blight mist, not to mention the tree literally eclipsing the light, and the stakes look like the eclipse crest evoking death. Huh. Yeah, definitely important, at least symbolically, that the tree is sort of blocking the sun, so to speak, and that's making it appear very dark and like a shadow. The gravestones have holes like near Lendell and the one on Morn. Oh, interesting. Oh, you're right. You're right. That is actually something that was taken from Dark Souls 3. And in fact, I think the big one in Morn might be a reused asset from God's Grave. You should all, if you're interested at all in some of the Dark Souls 3 stuff, I would check out a fantastic podcast with Sinclair Lore and Lance McDonald. I think, was Lance on there? Well, Lance McDonald has at least done some stuff on that, and Sinclair Lore has covered it. Yeah, I think that's all I can really glean out of this right now. So I'm sure people will be really poring over this. I don't know if there's anything else that I can really get from it. But I'd say based on the braids, that looks like Mikola. And also, I should say the sort of tunic is very similar to Mikola's as well. Where was it? Similar thing. Crunchy, you were talking about looking for things that aren't present in the image. There's no golden cosmos above the tree's canopy. No space visuals. That's a good point. Where'd it go? Come on, where'd it go? There we go. Right. Yeah, if anything, we have a sort of emanation from the base of the tree rather than. And also, it appears to be a sunset or sunrise, which is the same thing that we see in. That seems to be very important because sunset and sunrise if you take a picture, you don't know which one it is. It's a transitional state. And that's what the Elden Beast Arena looks like. It's at sunset or sunrise. And that's also what the Memory of Grace looks like. It looks like the reflection of the sun at sunset or sunrise upon the water. Miquella may have been reborn, considering how they look smaller than the model with Moog. So maybe some kind of... I think it would be reasonable to guess that this is some kind of world of the dead, some kind of spirit realm, some kind of... See, there's something slightly odd about that, though, because we do have physical, architecture here, and there's ghosts. So if it's a world of the dead, why would you have... you'd think that ghosts would appear in the world of the living, because if they would be like at home, so to speak, in the world of the dead, they wouldn't be out of place. So that's a little bit confusing, but I think it's reasonable to assume that this is probably some kind of spirit world or dream world. That's a good point, Sordier. Rena knows Torrent's former master, and she puts Kale to sleep. Rena/Ronnie. Yeah. And that's been a connection that people have drawn between Ronnie and St. Trina. And also the Amber Egg, which Ronnie emerges from. And also the rune of the Unborn. So if Miquella was Torrent's former master... Now, the thing is, if Miquella was Torrent's former master, then that would probably mean that this is in the past, rather than the future. But that would make a certain kind of sense. Maybe this is where Miquella went when he started to dream. There's also no grace, so it looks like we won't be guided through this place. Well, I mean, keep in mind that this is just concept art, right? So, now, I mean, actually, if you look at the concept art for the base game, they stuck incredibly close to the concept art. So, who knows? But something to do with the Helfin and Miquella. Well, yeah. I will say, in my video on Miquella, I said at the end that I didn't think the DLC was going to answer questions about Miquella, and I will eat my hat on that. I will eat crow on that, because this definitely seems like it's Miquella. So I will admit defeat on that front. I don't want to stay on for too much longer, because it's incredibly late and I need to go to sleep. What is on the tree? I mean, the gold. Yeah, it's some kind of sap. Some kind of sap with like a needle sort of piercing it. Yeah, one idea. Oh, maybe it's not Miquella. Maybe it's Godwyn. Is that possible? That's a real stretch, but... And it could still be Marika. And the thing is, all three of those people could be the same person in some sense. I mean, this is Elden Ring. There are no firm answers about anything. But I think definitely looking at this, the more I look at this, the more this seems very clear that this is an Erd tree, or it's meant to look like the Erd tree that we see in. I mean, let me just pull up a picture of the Erd tree for comparison. In fact, you know what I'm going to do is I'll pull up the concept art of the Erd tree, which is, no, it's part of the second set, isn't it? Give me 1 second here. There we go. So that, to me, that looks clearly like that, right? No, stop. I don't want to go through that. Yeah, so this one trunk, it's even at the same angle, right? It's like slightly off kilter. It's slightly leaning. That's clearly the Erd tree back there. Or something like the Erd tree. You know, another Erd tree. And then there's this twisting strangler tree growing around it. It's sort of literally strangling it with these things. Some kind of dead, maybe death root. Something that looks a little bit more like the misshapen trunk of the halig tree. Get a very Lord of the Rings vibe from this whole picture. I'm under the assumption... Oh, could it be the great... Hold on. Could it be the great tree to Erd tree transition? I'm of the view that the great tree wasn't really a different tree from the Erd tree. I'm under the assumption that the shadow of the Erd tree is the halig tree. That's... There is something odd about the halig tree. Actually, I wonder if I could find it. Let me see if I can find... how would I look this up? Original map, maybe? Something like that? I should have this saved somewhere. If you look at the very early map of the Lands Between, I don't know if I can find it. In the very early map of the Lands Between, one of the odd things about it is that the halig tree is at the southwest end of the map, rather than, you know, up in the north, and it's connected by a broken bridge to Raya Lucaria. And there's also the cut description for Loretta's armor, which talks about how she was an Arbor Sentinel gifted to Mikola because he was the recipient of the vision. This is very intriguing stuff. No, the map that I'm talking about is not concept art. It was, well, I guess in a sense it was concept art. It wasn't included in the art book. It was not 1.0. It was a piece of art. I don't know how you would search this up properly. Original map. You know, I bet someone posted it on Reddit. No. One of the interesting things about it is it very clearly has this giant crater in the middle. Um, much more clearly than the current map. Well, if someone can find it, I would I'd appreciate seeing it again. I should probably just save it on my computer. Yeah, I'm not going to find it this way. I'll have to think about how best to search that up. Anyway, I think I might leave it there. So, my conclusions. I think the most likely explanation is that this is not exactly the lands between, because the geology just, I don't know what the topography of the place, let's say, is too different. So whether it's far in the future, far in the past, or some just different dimension, some different plane of existence, I don't think we're really in the lands between. And that would also make sense from a game design perspective, because you want to escape the constraints of what you've set up. So it would make sense to introduce a different world, so to speak. Oh, do you have the map, Jarmister? Do you know what I could search up to find it? So that would be my conclusion, that we're in a different plane, some different place that's not the lands between. However, the fact that this is leaning at the same angle makes me think that it must be our Erd tree rather than another Erd tree. So in some sense that it's the same Erd tree, but perhaps it's like the inverse world. I think that's what we're dealing with. Is something like the inverse world. Elden Ring early map Reddit. Let me see if that works. Could it be this? No, this is the new one. Oh. Is that it? Come on, give me the goods. Ah, there we go. That's what I was looking at. This is not the highest of quality, but yeah, so if you see, oh, come on. Why can't I scroll up? What's going on? Let me just open this up properly. So if you look at it, it's an interesting, there's a couple things about this map. I mean, one being that there's clearly this giant crater here. Also, the idea that Caelid was a desert at one point. But the interesting thing about this is what seems to be the Halig tree. It's a little bit too faint for me to read the kanji. But I think that's the Halig tree. And there's a broken bridge which leads to Raya Lucaria. Oh, also I love the fact that Lendel is actually the Elden Ring. If you look at the walls, that's been changed in the retail version, and it's a symmetrical version of the Elden Ring, like the gravitational sigil. So back to this. So I think we're in some kind of different world. I think this is our Erd tree, but maybe an inverted version of our Erd tree. and it's being strangled, it's being parasitized by some other aspect, some death or something like that, some death root type thing. I think these are connected to the Rune of Death, and that this is probably Mikola. And beyond that, I don't really know what else to say about this. So I think I'm going to leave it there. And thankfully, we are no longer hollow. Humanity has been restored. There is DLC. No release date yet. So not sure exactly when we'll get it, but presumably, well, you know what? I'm sure Ziostorm is going to release a video within like probably the next 6 hours. So, because he's amazingly fast on this stuff. So I would wait for that one, and he'll probably have the best news about that. And I'd also follow Ratatosker for news about this. They are my two best sources, and fantastic lore people as well. So check it out. And don't go hollow, and have